Hey folks, this video started out as a simple Z7 II versus ZF portrait shoot, but quickly turned into a hardcore ZF weather testing experiment as Hong Kong entered a Signal 10 Typhoon and we couldn't help but go out and shoot in it. Our gear, clothing, bags and the equipment was absolutely drenched, but I just love shooting in the rain. A bit over a year ago, I helped Honey buy this Nikon ZFC, which she uses for her vlogging and for making all of her content. Now, you haven't actually seen this one, even though I intended to test it with you when it was first coming out. This is its new big brother, so it's not replacing that one. I don't know if you remember, we talked about yours has a smaller sensor than my cameras.
Yes.
So this has the same big sensor as mine, but it's like the full-size version of this one. And that's what we're going to be playing with today.
This is more handy and more comfortable for my hand.
And you have small hands, but yeah, the ZFC really has no grip there.
Yes, I need to hand like this. And then this one.
There you go. So even with small hands, the ZFC was a little bit of a challenge. It is down to perspective, and this is what
I like this one because you see today it's raining.
Calm down, calm down. No, please tell me, but what?
Because today it's raining, and then I use this one, and the rain will get inside. If I put this one, just one off, and then the other one won't be affected. But this one.
Okay, so none of this is scripted, but Honey is running away on me and has just covered two things that I personally find really important. So one is, it depends where you're coming from. So I get it, if you're using a Z7, a Z8, a Z9, the ergonomics of the ZF are not as ergonomic and user-friendly. But if you're coming from the ZFC or in fact an old film camera, the ergonomics on this are quite good. And yes, that is something that I talk about a lot on cameras. These kind of cameras have 2 or 3 different doors, but in the past, flagship cameras would have 5. So every port has its own door, which I've been saying is so important if you're shooting in a Typhoon like it is outside here, to be able to just open the mic or headphone or just the HDMI and not have everything open. Like this one, to have my mic in, I have to have like the big Ethernet port exposed to the weather. It's really not ideal. So that's not what today's video is about. What we're actually talking about today, I want to do a comparison of the Nikon Z7 II to the ZF. Now, if you think about it, there's a lot of similarity between the Z6 II and the Z7 II, but so many people were hoping that the ZF would have the 45.7 megapixel sensor of the Z7 II. So by doing a little test showing how they compare to each other, doing a portrait shoot, you get an idea of how this compares to the Z7, but also the Z6 Mark II, and then you'll have sample files so you can see, is there really a big difference between these two that would make you not want to get the ZF because of its lower resolution. That was a long intro. Let's go. So I shot away with each of the cameras, tried to basically replicate the same situations. My continuous light wasn't flickering, that's just the background, apologies for that. So we got some moving shots and some static shots. Now I'm going to show you some Atomos footage here through the lens, but it really needs to come with a disclaimer because you don't know when I'm hitting the button and that kind of thing, so you can't actually tell if there's any lags. I can tell you, however, the ZF was a really smooth shooting process as I was engaging via the shutter or the autofocus button. It was fast and responsive and staying with her, and my strike rate was reasonably high. The Z7, on the other hand, it doesn't look too different, but I can tell you there was a laggy shooting experience of sometimes seconds between when I would be asking it to do things, even simple things like open the menu, and the camera actually doing it. That's not to say there's something wrong with the Z7 II per se, it's still a great camera, I'll explain in just a second. So look, first impressions, and this isn't actually the first time I've shot these side by side, but today, the ZF, despite being the retro, cheaper camera, it's so much more responsive, and it's quite clear that the X-Speed 7 is what we have to thank for all the updates we're getting to things like the Z9. There's just headroom on that processor. This guy is really struggling using the Atomos, the Z7 II. Everything slows down. The autofocus was not that reliable, and even going through menus or switching even to the EVF became really sluggish. So let's shoot that one more time using no Atomos and see if we get a better result. But you know, first off, the ZF is picking her out, staying with her much more responsive, even with the Atomos, than the Z7 II.
Cute.
Right.
Yes, me.
The studio too. So overall, I think the main difference shooting them, the ZF is definitely more responsive. The Z7 has more megapixels, but as a shooting experience, you don't have any difference on that. Just that this was noticeably a smoother shooting process. And with these lenses up to like the 50mm, I personally don't find any problem with the ergonomics. But maybe with the 24-70 or the 51-2, you might want to get the additional hand grip for it. This is more ergonomic. I'm not saying that this is just nothing, but I still find it kind of fine. They're almost the same in weight. So if this were, you know, bigger and I'm using like the 85-1.2, then yes, I think I would start to struggle with this. We have about 20 minutes left in this studio, so let's grab one more outfit and then see how the weather is outside. So, great and perfect outfit to finish in black and white. 3 very different looks there. This studio is so tiny, so I'm sorry the background is not like totally clean with junk everywhere. One thing, and this is such a small thing, but if you're working on productions, it becomes a big thing. Keep in mind the ZF is micro HDMI and the Z7 is mini, and the Z8 and Z9 are full-size HDMI. It's a real pain in the butt to have to carry all these different HDMI cables. So today I've been switching cable back and forward to get each one. We have like 15 minutes to pack a mountain of stuff and then we'll go outside, and I don't know if it will be completely calm or if there will be 100-mile-an-hour gale force wind, and it is a Typhoon signal 8 right now, so let's go find out. As we headed out of the building, you couldn't really tell if it was raining. When the rain is so heavy, it's just a continuous, monotonous white noise. But when we hit the street, yes, it was absolutely pouring. We found a little area where we could hide the bags and then started to shoot out just out on the footpath before I realized, well, there's not really any cars driving around because of this weather, so we headed out into the actual street. There was some traffic cones there that I thought made for a really nice foreground element. There was an interesting line being formed by the light wrapping around the buildings in the distance, which gave her a nice silhouette. So I had her walk back and forward there a little bit before doing some jumping motions. In total, we were probably only out for 15 or 20 minutes, enough to get thoroughly soaked though, and to have a lot of fun. Okay folks, so 2 days later and I think my shoes and luggage have finally dried out. I ended up having to walk home through the typhoon because all of the public transport had stopped, so my jacket became a cover for my roller bag full of cameras. Now disclaimer, I'm not sure that I would say it's therefore safe to take your ZF out into that rain, but they do advertise it as having superior dust and drip resistance, which enables worry-free shooting even in harsh environments, and I guess a typhoon counts as a harsh environment. So I don't know that there's anything too groundbreaking in this video. I've already returned the ZF, but with that new X-Speed 7 processor, it's certainly faster and more responsive. The shooting process for anything moving is going to be smoother than using the Z6 II or Z7 II. Other than the media formats, there's not a whole lot that you could choose the Z6 II over the ZF, but it's going to come down to your preference on resolution for the Z7 II versus the ZF, so make sure you check out those sample files